this is the main video for the segment, and that's this one. And it talks about Khanna discussed his trip to China, rising tensions with China, and the deal Saudi Arabia sending Ukraine $400 million. And I think that's in arms, so which is basically going to the United States arms dealer. So it's all a circle. But let's listen to Khanna.
Well, the Chinese have not responded to this latest news on Saudi Arabia offering this $40 million in aid. What they have responded to is an American delegation that made its way to Taiwan over the last few days. Republicans and Democrats both. That did not sit well with China. They called it a provocative act. We had two congressmen part of that journey, back from that journey, California Democrat Representative Khanna and Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzales. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. Obviously, this was a bipartisan effort, and to you.
Let me just pause it here to make a point of what the ruling class has adjusted a long time ago. Because you would go, look at that there. Look at those congressmen. We got a Hispanic or Latino, and we got, is he from Pakistan or Indian? American. Oh, look at them in Congress. A beautiful thing. And both are two fucking corrupt pieces of shit.
Yep.
Both of them. And you see how so they've addressed the we want somebody from our community because they'll go to Congress and do the things for our community. And they say, oh, no, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna get somebody who looks like the people in your community, and he's gonna espouse the same thing as the white people preceded him. That's essentially what we have.
And it's obvious that they are doing this to strengthen capitalism and to provide a shield for themselves. Meanwhile, the right-wing analysis of this is they'll look at this and like, oh my God, the Democrats are so woke. Look at how they embrace people of color. That's how they view it. Even though to us it's obvious that they do it in order to embolden these systems by putting a pretty face, a representative face on it. But let's continue.
You, Congressman Gonzales, first. Why make the trip, knowing that the reaction would be just as you discovered from China, that it was provocative, almost as bad as when Nancy Pelosi went, they said?
Yeah, now here in the House, we don't pay attention what the communist China propaganda puts out. It's important that the House lead, though.
Oh, these people, man.
Come on. And too often we point to the White House for not doing X, Y, or Z. You know, the House of Representatives is an equal branch of government, and this is an area that is a bipartisan effort to go all across the globe and stand with our allies. You know, when I was, you talk about provocative. When I was in the Navy, we used to fly on a P-3 surveillance flights against China, and China would come out and they would harass our airplanes. The exact same thing is happening now. The only thing is they're harassing our P-8s. So this is dangerous. China.
So he's part of the Navy intelligence or something similar to that. So Democrats and GOP have CIA elected people in who they would refer to as people, and they just simply call people who are CIA Democrats, for example, people who used to be high-ranking or in positions of power in different military branches. And this to me, this sort of marrying, have people go through the military. How is that person going? How do you think that person is going to view the military? Like, what do you think? Are they going to be like, hey, let's cut military funding? And it speaks to the point, Nick, that you make all the time. Who do we have to vote for if we don't want to have war? Like they're literally eliminating those options with people and elected candidates like this guy right here.
This guy sounds just like DeSantis.
Doesn't he, though?
Is being irresponsible in the way they're reacting, and it's important that we have bipartisan direction when we go out and talk about it in the world.
Switching to you, Congressman Khanna, as you know, we're committing now 200 troops to Taiwan. I think from around 30 now, and that is something else that's not been greeted favorably, not surprisingly, by Taiwan. Do you support that? Because some look at that as a preview to coming attraction that will send still more troops and more and more. What do you say?
Our commitment to train Taiwan in its own self-defense is appropriate. And I think there's nothing provocative about American politicians going to Taiwan, given our economic ties with semiconductors, given that Taiwan is a democracy, given that President Carter, who signed the Taiwan Relation Act and recognized China, was in Taiwan in 1999. So there's no reason for China to think that American politicians, continuing in a tradition that President Carter actually started, going to Taiwan is any problem.
So let me ask you both this, Congressman Gonzales, if China were to invade Taiwan, is that an act of war? We should commit our
Jesus
I think the president
Christ. Let's see what Ro says. Let's see what Ro Khanna's answer, because that's gonna be very telling. That's gonna be very telling.
President Biden has made it very clear that we are going to stand with Taiwan, that we are going to remain there by our allies. But we got to get to a point. I spent 20 years in the military. I spent 5 years
Taiwan
in
is not
Iraq
a NATO
and Afghanistan.
country. It's
I want to
China.
prevent wars.
They are presenting this as Taiwan as a close ally to the United States. China and Taiwan has very industrial and very strong trade relations with each other, which is why Taiwanese people do not want to separate from China. Most of them want the status quo because they benefit from it. There's a lot of trade and good and family that goes back and forth between China and Taiwan, just like between Ukraine and Russia. They completely whitewashing that and pretending that Taiwan is like Hawaii, like it's like right there, right next to us, our friend. It's like opposite than what they were saying. And many people, they can't even point out Taiwan on the map. When you ask liberals like where fuck Taiwan at, they point in the Western Hemisphere. They don't know that Taiwan is literally right there. How many Americans don't know that Taiwan is right there? You know that Taiwan is 3 times closer to China than Hawaii is to the United States? But people pretend that Taiwan is this foreign land to China. China only lost Taiwan because of Japanese imperialism. Don't get me started on this. Let's continue. I need to invite Maury Kimberly on again because she's really good at debunking this bullshit. But let's continue.
I don't want to see America get dragged into another war, whether that's in Taiwan
I certainly understand that. But if China invaded Taiwan,
you see that? The weapon manufacturer representative. Hey, I understand that, okay? But you get the question. Are you going to go to war or not, sir? You see that? The media checking the freaking representatives.
And the thing is, the guy doesn't even sound good. Like he's not even a peace advocate
at
all. He's not weak on China. And this is what makes our media so insane. Like you have Anthony Blinken, you have Mike Pompeo getting interviews to the media, sounding crazy, and the media is like, why aren't you sounding crazier? Why don't you want to buy more people? And then the people during the interview, you look at his face. In their interview, they be like, "The fuck? I swear I said anything right. I swear I said anything right. What the hell are you talking about?" It's crazy. Let's continue. All right.
Spent 5 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to prevent wars. I don't want to see America get dragged into another war, whether that's in Taiwan
I certainly understand that. But
if
China invaded Taiwan, despite that, is that an act of war to which we should commit troops?
Oh, 100%. And yeah, I would argue that China is doing that exact thing right.
Do you think he, and I'll start with you, JB, do you think him interrupting and interjecting that, do you think he altered this guy's answer? Now he's like, absolutely. Like, do you think him like, hey, man, you hear what I'm saying? Do you think that altered his question to be more resolved in his answer, JB, and then Nick?
Well, I mean, they're they're workmates for the same people. It's just 2 workmates talking. That's all it really is. Fox News brought to you by Boeing. It's the same, they're workmates, right? This guy gets paid by the same guys that this guy on Fox News gets paid by. So really, what is the difference between them, right? Look, that's like me and Willie, in the kitchen talking to one another about something. People think that we're from 2 different companies when we're working on the same line in the back of the kitchen. Like, what? Me and Willie, we workmates. They're both workmates, man. So that's the thing people don't realize. And then this whole thing about wanting to go after China, Taiwan is a part of China. They don't get it. And the crazy part is like, wait a minute. Saying that China is going to invade Taiwan is like saying the United States is going to invade Texas. What? How can you invade Texas? It's a part of the United States. CJ.
Just calm down, JB. Calm
CJ,
down.
I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. These people, like,
But they're intentionally being wrong in order to mislead the audience.
Yeah.
And I'll play it and let Nick answer when he gets back.
Right now, in the cyberspace, that's where these wars start. They start in cyber, and then they go on from there. So it's absolutely important that we have a bipartisan delegations continue to make this trek and show that America is going to stand by its allies.
All right. Does that mean then to you as well, Congressman Khanna, that China invading Taiwan to take it back, as it says it's theirs anyway, that
They
we
said
should
it's
commit
there.
ourselves to
They
protect
said. They said
So
it
here-
there instead of NATO. NATO, you guys know that NATO officially recognizes Taiwan as China. Taiwan is not NATO. There is no alliance on paper that connects Taiwan and the United States. They were just making it up. Then they said China says it's part of Taiwan. China's part of Taiwan. It's insane. Let's continue. Go ahead, CJ.
Man, I mean, let's just look at the map here and what makes sense here. And Taiwan was taken by Japan. Look how far Japan is to Taiwan. And then they just took it and they took it back. So that's the reason why they even have these separatists on the soil of Taiwan. Is because of that. Like this is so.
It's aggressive propaganda, man. It's so
That's
aggressive.
what I was just about to say. This is so like in your face, like trying so hard to trigger you so hard. And for a progressive, a so-called progressive like Khanna to be participating in such ramped up propaganda in order to rile people up about China, it just speaks to the whole progressive Democrat apparatus and how it's just rotted to the core.
CJ, do you see this? I'm gonna just read this comment real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
This from Wary Pilgrim, friend of the show. I think a recent poll had Adam Schiff 22%. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, he's terrible too.
20%. So we lose here. Lose. Barbara Lee at 6%. Neocon at 4%. Hurting. Like there's no winning here. Barbara Lee unfortunately turned her back on the anti-war movement. She had a great vote on Afghanistan, but she's all in for the Ukraine war, and she turned her back on the movement. So California politics is as bad as it gets. Like there's no winning here.
Yeah, there's no.
Good. Thank you for the comment, Warrior. I didn't see that post, so
You see that? Like you think, oh, California, New York, y'all have some of the best Democrats, right? Most furthest left. Really? You talking about AOC and Hakeem in New York?
CJ,
you talking about Khanna and these freaking milquetoast over here in California?
CJ, who are they replacing? Think about who they're replacing. They're replacing Dianne Feinstein, who was senator for decades.
Jesus, she was terrible, man.
There's no such thing.
That lets you know that blue can't get any better. I mean, how further left can you get than California, who walk away from Medicare for all? Literally, it was right there at the doorsteps, and they walked away from it. That's the Democratic Party, but. We can continue. Unless go ahead, JB, if you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, I was just looking at it about how close Taiwan. Taiwan is 100 miles from mainland China, right? Taiwan is closer to China than Puerto Rico is to the United States.
Yep.
And
go ahead,
the same distance from China to Taiwan is the same distance from the United States to Cuba. That's how close Taiwan is to China. And so to sit here and talk about how Taiwan and China aren't that close or not or they're two different countries when the United States even recognizes Taiwan as China. Taiwan is basically, you could say, a state of China. I mean, is it safe to say that? So
What
why
are
in the
what are
world?
officials saying? What are officials saying, JB? If you know, what are they saying about like the one China policy? Or Nick, if you wanted to chime in, what are they saying about the one China policy? Are they
They
saying
pretend it
no
doesn't
more?
exist.
That?
They just pretend it doesn't exist because if you look at the United States strategy, the United States official strategy is meant to be purposely vague on this issue, where they talk about Taiwan as a close ally that China is encroaching on. But don't bring up the fact that we still acknowledge China, Taiwan as part of China, and we can't revoke that. They understand they can't revoke that because that'd be way too exploratory. So they walk
Yeah.
this fine line, whereas it's almost like don't talk about it. The media don't talk about it, or the people who have anti-China rhetoric. And I watch a lot of these segments, guys, doing propaganda report. They purposely leave it out, and that's a coordinated U.S. strategy they've been doing for the last decade or so. JB, if you want to chime in.
Yeah. So this, it says here, this is from eu.chinamission.gov.china. Says the one China principle has a clear and unambiguous meaning. There is but one China in the world. Taiwan is an inalienable part of China, and the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China. The de facto basis for the one China principle is unshakable. Taiwan has belonged to China since ancient times. The easiest references to this effect dates back to the year 230. From the 12th century onwards, the imperial central governments of China all set up administrative bodies to exercise jurisdiction over Pinghu and Taiwan. In 1885, the Qing court upgraded Taiwan's status and made Taiwan a full province. A province to us is just like a state in the United States. When it then became the 20th province of China, or 20th state of China, in 1895, the Qing government defeated the First Sino-Japanese War. It was forced to cede Taiwan and the Pinghu Islands to Japan. After the Chinese people's victory in the war against Japanese aggression, China recovered Taiwan and the Pinghu Islands, resuming the exercise of sovereignty over Taiwan in October of 1945. The fact that Taiwan was returned to China is a part of the post-World War II world order. Since 1949, although the mainland and Taiwan are yet to be reunified, Taiwan's status as part of China's territory has never changed. So China and Taiwan are one.
Thank you, JB, for that information. And I'm gonna just hear one more quote to give everybody for Khanna, and we'll close this segment in maybe 2 minutes. So let's listen for one more quote about what he says about China here.
Taiwan, defending Taiwan, having U.S. soldiers in Taiwan.
Well, first of all, let me just echo what Representative Gonzales said. We can and will avoid war in China. That was clear to me meeting the president there and the leadership there. If we help Taiwan build up its defense and deterrence, and at the same time,
You disgusting motherfucker.
there's no reason.
You guys listen to what he just said there. He said, we're going to avoid the war with China, right? That's the head fake. He said, while we do this, we are going to build up Taiwanese defense. What does that mean? That means arm Taiwanese separatists. So what Khanna is saying is, we're going to avoid war with China as long as China behave. As long as China doesn't do anything stupid, right? Imagine someone went to your house and they start fucking your house up, stealing your stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're not going to have a fight here as long as you don't do anything stupid. As they're stealing the stuff in your house, burning your crops. That's what they want from China here. And that's what they asked for Russia. The United States say, let us impose our geopolitical dominance and destroy your hegemony. And you better not do anything. If you do anything in response of us violating your sovereignty, there will be war and it will be your fault. That's what Khanna is saying here.
Nick, let me ask you this, man. Isn't this basically just a roundabout way of what Japan did to China by taking Taiwan? Like, if that's what it feels like. It feels like The United States is trying to do what Japan did, but just in a more roundabout, sneakish way.
They try to make Taiwan the new Ukraine. They've been
Yeah.
bringing a strategy to try to make this as a war that they can drag out as a way to straight up escalate to war with China. This is the NATO 2030 strategy that I have spoken about, and this is what led to the splintering of NATO. We have NATO people say, "Why are we even doing this? Like, how did this ensure our national defense? Like, aren't we a defensive organization?" So, hope that's like kind of their mindset here.
There needs to be war, and that should be the goal. If war there would be catastrophic for the world and the American economy.
It sounds like China is preparing for something here. They're not just ranting out of,
They're preparing for something here.
So I'm just wondering whether you would support that if it came to that.
I would support what our policy has been with the Taiwan Relation Act, which says that we will support
this
Taiwan.
News anchor is like, so he asked it twice. He said, if China invade Taiwan, will you guys support war? And then they answer is essentially yes. And then he comes back like, no, you didn't say it strong enough, motherfucker. Then you want to bomb China. So their answer were already hawkish. Wasn't enough for him, though.